Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
You know, Jason said, we don't have anybody today. That's okay. You and me. Just the two of us. We'll do it. And now it's just me. All right. So, everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being with us in class. And if you'd like to call in, if you've got some preparedness tips or suggestions, that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about the book, not published, but, you know, items in it, things that I've done, things that have happened lately to the Finelli family and how we've reacted to it for 2 hours. If you'd like to call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up and running, 605-477-3249. Okay, so let's start with Menards. A few weeks ago, Mrs. Finelli and our son went to Menards, and they bought some dog biscuits for TJ because they had the big boxes on sale. And these are, like the size of a shoebox, but for boots. So they bought 2 of them, brought them home, and they had maggots in them. Maggots in the dog biscuits. So, what do? Well, Mrs. Finelli put a few biscuits in each of 3 bags, Ziploc type sandwich bags, threw the rest of them away. And the other box was unopened. And we decided there's no way we're going to feed these to our dogs. So I went to Menards with Mrs. Finelli a few days ago, and the best used by date was on the box, and it was certainly within the best used by date. And I went to the control tower, and I did not bring the receipt. And it's a Menards biscuit. It's not like it's some other brand. It's theirs. You can only get them at Menards. And there's only one Menards, near here. And the next one is over 100 miles away. This one's about 50 miles away or 60 miles away. So we brought them back, and the gal says, well, the best way to do this is go over that kiosk there and get your receipt. Now, I'm working on this kiosk, and you have to enter the kind of card you used and which card and so forth, and you scan your card. And it was a pain. 10 minutes later, I said, I give up. I give up. So I went back to the control tower, and one of the maggots had drilled a hole in the tape. I guess they saw daylight coming through this clear plastic shipping tape that the box was packaged with. And one maggot was popped out looking for daylight, crawling around on the top of the box. And she said, "Ooh, that's disgusting." I said, "Yeah, that's what I thought, because my dog asked me to bring these back. He said he won't eat them." So as she was ringing it up, I said, "So are you in school?" It was a young girl. And she said, yeah. I said, "So what do you want to be if you grow up?" She said the most amazing thing to me. She said, "I want to be rich." Most people would say, well, you want to be a carpenter or a plumber or a mechanic or a doctor or a lawyer or Indian chief or, some kind of a occupation or profession. She just wants to be rich. I said, "So what are you going to do to try to make that happen?" And she said she was going to find some NBA player, National Basketball League type player, hockey, or some well-paid player, and she was going to latch on and try to become that guy's or gal's trainer. So she was going to ride on the coattails of someone who has already made a lot of money. Interesting thought. She was a millennial. I guess that's the way we think today, right? So instead of doing your best to achieve your goals, you find someone else who has achieved the goals that you wish you could achieve and cling on. To me, that's what's wrong with America. Just one little iota of what's wrong with America. And while we're beating up Menards, they have these 11% off sales quite regularly. They used to be, every, a quarter of a year or a third of a year, every 6 months. Now they seem to have them every few weeks. But it's not 11% off sale. That's what they call it. It's really, you get 11% back as a rebate. So you have to get your receipts and you have to put them all together and then you have to fill out this coupon and then you mail it in, put a first-class stamp on it, and then about 4 to 6 weeks later you get this thing that looks like what's it look like? It looks like a postcard. It looks so much like a postcard, I threw the first one out. Yeah, I did. And it was a $100 rebate. It looked like, get your swimming pool here. Or, it looks cheesy. And it says, international rebates or something as the return address, which is small. But, there's a picture of a swimming pool or something like that on the back of this postcard-looking thing. It looks like junk mail. It really does. And the one I threw out was for around $100. I bought a stainless steel hot water heater for about $1,000, so 11%, and about a little over $100 in rebate. So I had to get it replaced, which took another 4 to 6 weeks, and it was just a hassle. So that's their hook. They get you coming back again and again and again by this 11% off rebate. Well, let's see. What else should I talk about? I should talk about the Menards credit card. And they've got you get 2% back if you use their card. Well, it's, probably worth doing if you don't mind being tracked for everything you buy, but we're tracked anyway on everything we buy if we use a credit card. So we use the credit card and we get the statement in, and we got the statement yesterday. So yesterday was October 28th. The payment was due 7 to 10 days before the due date. The due date was the day before we got it. So it was due October 29th. We get it on it was due on October 27th. We get it in the mail on October 28th, and there's a up to $38 late fee. Did I say that right? Up to $38 late fee. I was livid. Counted to 1,000. Called up the credit card company. I was very polite. I said, geez, y'all sent this out. And we received it after the due date, and you want 7 to 10 days to process it before you hit me with a $38 late fee. And the gal said, yeah, it happens sometimes. So she credited me, and that was kind of nice of her. Very, very courteous gal. And this is Capital One. They're always nice, but boy, are their fees outrageous. And I think the interest rate that they charge if you want to roll over to the next month, some of your portion of your outstanding balance, you're looking at over 29%. Did you hear me right? 29%. It's outrageous. Why would anybody do that? I was prepared to say to them, tell you what, if you can't fix this, that's not a problem. I'm not going to pay the bill. You don't want to fix it, you'll get nothing. And I won't use Menards, nor will I use your Capital One credit card with the Menards big card imprinted on it. I was literally prepared to do that, but I didn't have to. And I think the way to hammer the credit card companies when they pull stunts like this is to complain to the company whose name is on the credit card. So, for example, it's issued by Capital One, but it says Menard's big card on it. It's this most gaudy-looking, childish. I think they had a contest, and they got a bunch of 7-year-olds to design the front of the card. And the worst one is the one they chose. That's what it looks like. maybe 9-year-olds in art class. It's really, really gaudy looking. But that's what Menards does. And speaking of credit cards, got another credit card bill in the mail. And when I had I want to thank our detractor, a guy named Keith. He really helped me see the light. And because he decided to beat us up so often, I shut down our website. Thank you very much, Keith. Really appreciate it. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't have to post news articles. Don't have to write anything. I don't have to do anything. And that was because we have a detractor who just couldn't stop beating me up every single day. This guy demanded that we sell our farm and give him the proceeds. This guy's just awful. Anyway, so I shut down the credit card. Shut down the website. And we keep getting this bill from Intuit. And Intuit is that TurboTax company. And it keeps showing up $12.95. Well, that started out as one of these credit card, take your payment over the internet type applications attached to our website. I don't sell anything, so I don't need it. So I called them, canceled it. No problem. No problem, Mr. Finelli. Thank you very much. And it just keeps appearing to $12.95. It's 3 months now. I called them up, and I got it. Got a credit. So month number 1, $12.95. Call them up, get it canceled. Next month, I got a credit. Perfect. This month, it's back. So what do you do in a case like that when the company just doesn't pay attention and they cause you excess grief? Well, I could call into it and say, y'all, you just don't get it, right? You just keep billing me for something I don't want, don't need, can't use. And you just won't lay off. Well, I can call them and do that. Or I already told them and I have the case number. I have the 800 number. I've got all the information. I wrote it right on the credit card statement. I just got 3 months ago statement. I've got it right in front of me. Another $12.95 on there. This time I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to go through the credit card company and I'm going to dispute it. I'm going to say, I told these guys. I have the case number. They said they would take care of it. They keep billing me. Now, when I do that, they are going to lose their $12.95 because immediately that will be credited to me. The next thing that happens is Intuit gets charged $35 as a fee when someone disputes a charge on the credit card. So when a merchant puts a charge on your credit card and you dispute it, immediately that charge gets credited to you and the merchant gets hit with a $35 fee. It's pretty much universal. Now, I figure that between the $12.95, they're really not going to want to fight that. And they know that if I do it this time, I'm going to keep doing $35 chargebacks every month from now on until hell freezes over. Yeah, I will. So who's into it? You might think that they're these really nice TurboTax people, right? Well, let me tell you who they are. Intuit lobbies the U.S. Congress. What do they lobby them for? Well, that would be to keep the tax code so complicated that you need TurboTax to help you fill out your taxes. Because they know that you can't do it because it's so complicated. Well, a few of you can. Actually, I'm sure our class can. But I'm talking about the GDP. They can't do it. So lobbying Congress to make the tax code stay complicated. That's Intuit. The same people I'm talking about. We'll be right back. Yeah, just me in the studio today. David in Illinois, welcome.
Hey, how you doing? I spoke to some younger people, and you're bringing up about taxes and making it so complicated. And I remember when we got our last year of high school, they would actually teach you how to do your taxes in economics before you graduated, so you could do this. And, I spoke to some younger people today, and do they teach you this? Oh, no, they don't teach us that. Because I would ask them, why are you going to have your taxes done? Oh, I can't do them. Why? Well, I don't know how to do them. Why? And they don't teach any of that anymore, even before they get out and go on into the world.
Well, when I taught in the Commonwealth of Virginia, our high school was a pretty famous named high school. It was a very large old building built probably around in the 40s, maybe the 30s. So large brick, Southern colonial type building. It's really impressive. And in the front of the schoolyard was, on the grass, was a house built to match, same roof pitch, and tall roof, slate roof. And it was literally a house. And the house had living room, kitchen, bedroom. And it was designed for teaching home economics. So you, as a student in high school, could actually learn how to vacuum and clean and wash windows and cook in the kitchen. And you could sit at the table and balance your checkbook. You'd learn about home finance. You'd learn about lending, borrowing, and farming, and all the numerical things that went into that. Profit, loss. You literally learned how to run a house. And gradually, that was reduced to the point where it's non-existent today. So one of the most important things that a family does is run the family operation. You can call it the family business if you want. It's father, mother, children all working together and sharing in everything that goes on. Income, outgo, whatever you want to call it. Cooking, cleaning, maintaining the building, all of those things removed. And you're absolutely right. So I went to and this is back in 1993 that I did this. I went to the superintendent of schools. He's the guy that hired me to run the class that manufactured computers within the school system. And I volunteered to do this. No one said, hey, you got to rewrite the curriculum. I rewrote it. And I said, here's what it's missing. We are missing teaching home finance. We're missing teaching principles of insurance, ethics, business ethics, principles of banking, principles of law, all the common things that we need to know about. We're missing these, and we need to put them back into the school system. So my plan was reading, writing, arithmetic, science, those kinds of things. Everybody gets to learn that at the high school level, freshman, sophomore, and then when they get to become juniors and seniors, they can opt in, take an elective, which would be my course on how to start a business, how to be an entrepreneur. And that class centered around a manufacturing company that was thriving within the school system. We actually made computers in the school system. And we sold them, and we built networks, and we networked schools throughout the state or the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm talking, it's a pretty big state. And we sold $1,200,000 worth of computers and network equipment in 1 year from my classroom. So it actually worked. But when I proposed to the superintendent that we change the curriculum, it's like, that's never going to happen. We can't do that. And that's because the county governments that run the school system get money that's taken from the taxpayers at the muzzle of a gun, sent by the states to the federal government corporation. Then this federal government corporation takes a portion of that and sends a little bit back to the states that distribute it to the county school systems. So it's money. We'll be right back with David. David's with us and in Illinois. And so David and class, instead of teaching reading, writing, penmanship, cursive writing, creative thinking, auto mechanics, plumbing, heating, home economics, science, principles of business, we are shifting the classroom time to multicultural and homosexual agendas. That's where we are. So if you love your children, take them out of the public training camp, because the odds are increasing that you send your boy or girl to the public training camp or the public university or the public community college, and what you get back at the end of 2 to 4 years is increasingly a homo. How'd that happen? Not only that, but you get to pay for it while it happens. David?
Yes, you know, they're actually teaching children as young as they're starting out in preschool, teaching them homosexualism and transgenderism. I do not understand. I mean, my original intention in college was psychology, and I did a lot of years of this. And they know, the science community knows these children have no clue. They don't even have no, interest in the opposite or sexual orientation at that time. I don't understand. I'm just, the only thing, my opinion about that is there's the whole homosexual community. They have lobbyists in government, which they do, which is amazing. But hey, that's the free society, I guess. And they found a way they can walk right in the door and force this to happen right under every parent's nose. And there's nothing, they're not fighting to do anything about it. They're just.
David, you mentioned psychology. I remember being in Psychology 101 at the university as a freshman, and I was interested in what this was all about. I wanted to understand how this all works. I got to tell you, what I found out was that most of the people in the class with me were there for one reason: to find out what was wrong with themselves. I'm not kidding. Did you find that too?
There was a lot of interesting young people. They just, most of the classes I did, the first class, there was your slackers that were just wanting to be there. But the ones that really, the more advanced classes, they were in there to try to understand, and to really get an understanding of everything and everybody that's around them. I mean, they're really the ones interested. You hit that afterwards. The first one, they were just taking. Sorry.
Did you learn about conditioned response?
There was so much that we learned, and obviously, things have changed in, terminologies, and it's been a while. I mean, we've learned a lot. I mean,
let me give an example.
Yeah, that was.
I sat in the front row, second seat from the left, in Psychology 101. And we had this really weird psychology instructor. And he was teaching us about conditioned response. So, for example, you give your dog a biscuit, and you say biscuit, and hey, biscuit, biscuit, biscuit. And eventually the dog realizes that word means he's going to get this treat, and he starts salivating. So you kind of condition the dog to, when you say biscuit, he comes running over because he wants one of those things, and he starts salivating. So you actually condition that response, okay? You provide the conditions for that response.
Yeah, they used rats to explain that, but it was more upsetting the way they showed us the cases, how they were teaching them. Either you get the treat. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I sat next to this gal. Now, this was back in the 70s. These were the days of the miniskirts. And when we were at the university, they had these kind of desk chair setups. So you'd have this metal frame seat, or frame, and then there was a molded plywood seat, and then you'd have off to the side this writing surface. So you could lift up the surface and put it in position, and then you'd have your own little desk. Or you could swing away that writing surface. Did you ever have one of those?
No, we had, they wouldn't swing. Our desks were just your standard wood top chair attached to the chair.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So these are the days of the miniskirts. And I sat next to this girl whose last name was Fox. And it was pretty apt. And she was a real pretty girl, and she wore a miniskirt to classes every day. And instead of using that writing surface, she would put her notebook on her lap. and write on her lap, take notes from what the instructor said and what he put on the board. And this instructor was, I'd say maybe 30 years old, kind of a goofy guy. And we were learning about conditioned response. So she and I talked about this, and we wanted to see if it worked. So what she would do is when the instructor was at the extreme other side of the room, as far away from us as he could be, she would lift up her notebook, show her legs, spread her legs just a little bit, and write on her notepad. And he'd come right over to get a good peek. And just as he would get close, she'd put her notebook on her lap. No more peeking. So, so what she trained him to do was his best peek angle was on the other side of the classroom. And she trained him to teach from over there. Conditioned response. True story.
Yeah. Well, we had young people. Some of the younger kids. Now I went to a private school eventually. It was built similar to like you were talking. It was, and school was old. Buildings were from the 1800s, but it was a great place to go to school. And there was kids there that paid a lot of money. This girl said, "I'm failing. I don't want to do work. I'm going to get." Now I did sit in the front too, always, and didn't know I was still there collecting notes. And she just came in there and took her top off. She passed. I couldn't believe it. Didn't know I was there. She walked in the class at the end of the class. So, yeah.
Well, you know what they say. You've seen one, you've seen them both.
Yeah. Hey, I would have a comment about, you're talking about the credit cards. We don't have, I don't have those. We had credit cards, and the thing is they're not making money unless you're using them. And I had one with a dog during all that food nonsense, and we paid it off in full. We never used it, so they took it away, which I don't care. But one thing people may not understand is you got to be careful about them constant little payments they put on there. They wait until you don't pick up and recognize them, and then by the time you do call them to get it back, we can only go back so many days. They're keeping the rest of that money, and it happens.
That's right.
You may not.
That's right, and that's why I've been bringing this up. And so if our class is wondering why I'm talking about the Menards Capital One credit card and other credit cards and how I handle these situations, is because exactly what you're talking about is happening. And Mrs. Finelli she's a degreed mathematician. She has her master's degree, and she has a bachelor's degree in mathematics. And so she's very detailed oriented. And what she does is she scours all of the bills, the statements, transactions, and of course we use they're itemized in our preparation of our federal state taxes. So she looks at these things, and the minute she finds them out, it's my job to go to war. And I don't mind going to war. And when the phone bill increases, I go fight it. When the tax bill from the county increases, I go fight it. Literally. I mean, I go and make the appointments, and I get our taxes reduced. And when I see these charges, immediately I fight them because it adds up. And we're talking over 29% interest. Usury starts at 10%. Okay, over 29% is outrageous.
And the thing is,
it's immoral.
Most young people and every families just think, well, this is just me. This is just $5. Well, let's tack that on to just look at it, factor in a city. How many people in one city that's happening to? Now, let's go further, a county. Now let's go further, a state. You're talking a lot of money.
All right, let me give you a concrete example. One of the things that I do in USA Prepares is bring concrete examples that I've experienced in my life to the broadcast classroom. So we can talk about hypotheticals, and then I'll say, okay, here's an actual case. And that's how I was taught. When I went to the university, I learned that in the business world, there are two kinds of ways of teaching. One is numbers, okay? And the way the Wharton School teaches business is numbers. Everything relates to numbers. and econometrics. And the Harvard approach is a little different. Harvard is people and case studies. So here's the situation, here's what they did, and here is the result. So you could learn from what actually happened. And I was introduced to both at the university where I did my formal training for years. And the numbers that we're talking about are so great that you can, and I'm going to give you an example right now, a case study. I was the consultant for a very large city in North Carolina, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And my job was to automate the city, to design and expose the city government corporation to all kinds of computer technologies and help them decide which applications they would like on their network, which I was to design. So for a couple of years, I did this. And we built an early 911 center. You know, just call 911. Well, when you make that call, it ends up someplace. Well, there was no place for that to end up before we built it. So we built it. And I actually thought it was a good thing, calling 911. Well, it's changed since then. You know, you'd call 911 for an emergency. Now, it's kind of out of control, right? Well, the city decided they wanted to pay for this 911 and automation of the entire city. So how do they pay for it? Well, it's easy. It's with taxes. Now, I was not involved in this part, but I learned about it. They put a 75-cent tax on every landline. There were about 100,000 landline customers, telephone customers, and the city had their way and charged everybody 75 cents. That's $75,000 a month. First month was pretty good. After a few months, they had so much money, they didn't know how to spend it. As a matter of fact, they wanted to hire me to run this system. And I turned it down. They were going to pay me the second highest compensation in the city. So the city government corporation figured that since I designed it, no one knew more about it than I did. And that's why they were willing to pay me second only to the police chief. So I just looked up during the break how much a police chief or a sheriff makes in North Carolina. The average right now is between $97,000 and $109,000 a year, plus tips. Plus tips. It's an enormous amount of money as far as I'm concerned. And they were going to pay me almost that much. You know, that's what I'd be making today if I had been willing to accept that position, which I declined. I declined that position. And I think that there's some hard feelings because I walked away from that offer. And they went through great lengths to try to encourage me to take that job. But I didn't want to do it. I wanted to be a farmer and make no money. So that's where I am. And by the way, class, I want to share this, and while David's with us, that we have no sponsors for USA Prepares. Not one. Not one organization, person. We accept no money from anybody. Nobody. So I can say whatever I want on the air, of course, and our instructors can as well, and callers can as well. Of course, there's no profanity allowed. Those are my rules. And I am not beholden to Menards or Lowe's or Home Depot or any particular products. When I say that I use a product, it's because I choose to, not because anybody's paying me. No one's paying me anything to be their shill. Nobody. I wouldn't accept it. And as many broadcasters do today, they've got donate buttons. You can give them money and they'll fight for you. Nonsense. nonsense. They're not fighting for anybody but, in my opinion, themselves. Themselves first. It's my opinion. Now, I don't know them all, but of the ones I do know of, that's what they're doing. Give me money and I'll fight for you is what they say. And I'm not buying it. David?
I agree. I was listening to a bunch of other shows, a lot of other shows before I started calling here. I started listening to your show when you brought up your 817 Yaesu when I was doing research. That's the radio I've mentioned. I don't mean to say this real quick, but that's the radio I mentioned that I can't afford that right now. Not the Bellman.
I have a Kenwood. 444, I believe.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's an old one. My ham rig is really old. It's like 20-something years old. I don't buy anything new. Now I did buy some Bofang UV-5R. Is that what you're talking about? A little radio?
Yeah, those are the ones. Yeah, that everybody, they tried. Now, can I comment on this without going off? I apologize ahead of time.
Sure.
You brought up about the button, and that was the reason the government was going to ban them. And
that's what they said, but
that's what they said. But right, that's when I mentioned about the wattage capabilities and the extra bands. Now, the government's not going to come out and say that because everybody's going to run out and buy them. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing will do this. So no, they're not going to say that.
Right. So what we're talking about is the Bofang, BAOFENG, model number UV-5R, $19.99 shipped by eBay right now. You can buy them right now. And they are, another thing that I read is they are banned by the federal government because of their capabilities and the fact that they can use all kinds of frequencies and you can program them, and they don't want you to have them. It's as simple as that. And that's the real reason.
I think the wattage has been clocked on them to up to 8 watts, which by law they're supposed to be 5 watts. So they do put out more power. Now, they are harder than heck to program, but there's free software like Chirp, it's called, where you can program it via computer, within seconds probably. But you really should know how to use them in case you don't have access to a computer. So,
right. All right. My recommendation, David, is that if a person wants to have communications when things go bad, which I absolutely positively believe they will, this radio will do more for the smallest amount of money than anything I can think of on the planet. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There's a reason even the diehard people, radio users, they can afford good radios, but everybody I've heard has them as backups or in their stock.
Right, and this Bofang UV-5R, it's available on eBay right now and Amazon. $19.95 is the lowest price. $19.99 comes with an antenna, an earbud, microphone, thin cable, a rechargeable battery pack, and the charger. All that, $19.99. But you're going to need at least 2. And they work better than the family radios in terms of distance. But the family radio by Motorola is the most durable I found. Dave, did you want to stay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we'll be right back then. Yeah. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. David in Illinois has joined us. I just wanted to mention a little bit more about this Bofang radio that David and I were talking about. So the Bofang UV-5R UHF VHF dual band 2-way radio. That's a ham walkie-talkie. It's 5 watts. I just looked it up on eBay. They're still advertising them. $19.99 each shipped. And if you're not in the state they're shipped from, they're tax-free. So $19.99. And they're not going to last forever. If you drop them, it's not a good thing for them. They don't like that. But we've had some for years, and they work fairly well. But if you want to get yours before you can't get them anymore, That's where you can get them. You can also get them on Amazon. And according to what I read, and do your own research, don't believe anything I've said, they are not illegal to own, and they're not illegal to operate. They are just illegal to advertise and sell. So if you're not selling them, and if you're not advertising them, looks like you're in the clear based on my research. So I just want to share that. Any comments about that, David?
I have a little. I mean, yes, to own them and operate them is fine. Now there was discussions in the past when they found out about the wattage capabilities of what if they are actually going to take them because of the increased wattage. I don't think that. What are they going to do? Take them away from everybody? I mean, really?
Okay. Well, if you try this and go to eBay.com and you can type in Bofang. Now they make all kinds of models, not just the one I've been talking about, and David and I have been talking about the UV-5R. They make a lot of different models. But if you type in just Bofang, Baofeng on eBay, the first search result that eBay presents you with says 10,000 plus sold. It says that. Now maybe that's true. It probably is true. Here's another guy who has, this guy wants $21.99. Same. Now he is selling the UV82. I don't know what the difference is without checking it, but he sold 5,145. Another guy is selling the UV5R, the one that I've been suggesting you consider. He sold 972. So they are selling. Here's another guy that sold them 2,800 sold. So I believe the numbers are probably right. Now, if I had a choice, I really like this yellow-looking one that they have. I mean, from an aesthetic appearance, it looks kind of neat. But I just want to share with you that if you want to have communications, and if you look at Survivors, the 1970s series from BBC, or if you look at Jericho, which we've recommended as well, or if you look at The Walking Dead, which we've recommended as well, all homework assignments, that if you want to survive, you really need to watch these so you can see what could happen to you. Frankly speaking, they all had the same series of problems, and one of the big problems was communications.
Now, comment really quick. A lot of us think we factor in what we're going to purchase or have and whether it's legal and the legalities. But what we're forgetting is, in a crisis situation, that's out the window. That's not a bearing on the situation at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Bofang is a ham radio, and I absolutely positively recommend that you consider getting a ham radio license. I have one. And the reason I have one is because I think it is critical that you learn the operation and the technology, and you learn about radio waves, propagations, frequencies, effective radiated power, standing wave ratio, all kinds of things that you need to know to effectively use these radios. And I don't think that most people will learn that without having a goal of getting their license. And when I was growing up, I got a CB radio license, Citizens Band, because back then you need to have one to legally transmit. And here's what happened. Citizens Band radio went license free. When I had a license to use my Citizens Band radio, my base station, 5 watts input, 4 watts output, antenna on the roof. I learned about the technology in the 1960s as a young child. It was something I wanted to learn how to do. Well, when it became license free, the radio waves became just one long F word with commas between the F words. It was outrageous, the lack of civility that took over Citizens Band radio. You never, ever heard ham radio operators who were licensed or Citizens Band radio operators who were licensed use the profanity that took over the airwaves. David, would you agree with that?
Yes, and isn't that kind of one of the reasons why they keep pushing for some of these licenses, like on family bands, just so they can kind of like, get more, control the, language and have people be more mature on them.
Yeah, there's when someone uses profanity, I subtract about 10 to 20% from their IQ, just mentally. I go, that guy he can't explain what he's trying to say without 4-letter words, like 3 times per sentence. I was at Lowe's a couple days ago just buying 2 pieces of lumber. The guy in front of me used the F word. I don't even know this guy. First sentence out of his mouth, F word. Second sentence, F word. Third sentence, F word. It's become common. And I don't mean common in a good way. I mean common like in trash is common. It bothers me. The lowering of the standards. There's a middle-aged woman as a cashier, and this middle-aged guy, had no problem swearing for everyone around him to hear. Now, do you think that everybody said, no, I'd love to be just like that guy. I wish I had his intellect. I wish I had his morals. I don't think so. I think people do what I do. They subtract 10 to 20% from the IQ, say to themselves, that's what this guy really is. He's like below average. But it's getting worse. So I have no problem having a ham radio license. I'm not crazy about government regulations, but, plumbing code, electrical code, civility, it's all kind of nice. And I have never met a ham radio operator that wasn't a nice person. I have not met one yet. Would you say that that's probably accurate, David, or would you disagree?
No, I agree with you. They're very friendly, and they will offer to help. I've listened to them for quite a while when I got nothing to do. They're nice people.
Yeah. I wanted to share something with our class that's kind of a new phenomenon that I happened to see because I was spackling and painting a room in our house, a bedroom. And this is kind of an interesting thing. So in 2008, and I know it was 2008, because the label on the can says 2008, Mrs. Finelli and I decided that we were going to get a specific color for most of our house, inside paint. It's kind of a tan. It kind of goes with everything. You could call it eggshell. You could call it off-white. And the idea was, instead of having a different color in each room, which some people really think is nice, we think that white goes with pretty much everything. And we could use what's left over for the next room as we paint it. And if we need more, we get more and use what's left over for the next room. So instead of having a leftover gallon of, all these different colors, we don't have so much waste. So we had 3 cans left to paint the master bedroom, which I just finished spackling and taping. And she, Mrs. Finelli, sanded it and got it ready for painting. And she's the painter in the family. And so I opened up the first gallon of Valspar, custom mixed for us in this particular color. And the inside of the rim of the 2008 paint was rusted, almost completely rusted through. Now, it's not like this paint was sitting in a barn that has lots of humidity. It was sitting inside the house since 2008. Along with the other 2 cans, all 3 of them, Valspar. And the particular Valspar was Valspar Ultra. Now, I'm not sure if that was their best or worst. I don't know if that was the top of the line or the bottom of the line, because Valspar today has Valspar Signature. Then they have another one called these are just interior models within the Valspar line. Valspar Signature, Valspar Simplicity, Valspar Ultra, Valspar Pro Express Coat, Valspar Interior high gloss enamel, Valspar the Perfect White, Valspar 2000, Valspar Ultra 4000, Valspar door and trim enamel. Now, which one of those is their best? I have no clue. But we got the Valspar Ultra. They discontinued selling it at Lowe's for about, maybe 8 years. They just brought it back. So we had a new gallon mix to match. And of course it didn't. The young millennial who mixed the paint, I said, here's the old gallon of paint. Here is you can read the make, model. You can read the label as to which colors it was tinted with. It's all right there. I wrote it down for her so she could read it without a magnifying glass. And she said, no, I'll just, you painted this sample swatch with the paint. I'll match it. She matched it, and she put a little tiny, tiny, tiny dot in the corner. And Mrs. Finelli said, I can't tell whether that matches or not. Well, it didn't match. So we had 3 cans of the old. We shook them up, painted it, and painted one wall 16 feet tall on 2 sections of scaffolding with a ladder on top of that. Took her all day to paint one wall. He's leaning and hanging over the end of the scaffolding. And she painted, and she missed a couple spots. So she touched it up. This was the new paint. She touched it up with the old paint that was custom. The new paint was custom matched to the old. And now it looks like a leopard. And that's because the gal did not use the exact tinting that was used in 2008. She computer matched it. So I decided I had it because it took a whole day. And now we have a room with 2 colors, the old color and the new color. And it's supposed to match, and it doesn't. I'll tell you a little bit more about what happened when we come back. And I'll tell you this other phenomenon about the rust on the inside of the cans. I'd love to hear David's comments, see if he experienced the same thing. We'll be right back. So Mrs. Finelli started with one wall, and it took a gallon of the new Valspar paint to cover one wall. And she missed a couple spots, and the gallon was gone. So she just touched it up a little bit with the exact computer match that this millennial at Lowe's made for us. And it didn't match. So now we have to do the wall again. And I was livid because it took her a whole day. It took Mrs. Finelli a whole day to do this. So I went to Lowe's with Mrs. Finelli, and I said, here's the swatch we brought in. Here is my record of what I wrote down for the millennial engineer paint mixer to mix for us. And here's what happened. And there was a middle-aged gal at Lowe's who was in the paint department. She said, oh, this doesn't match. I said, yeah, it doesn't match. And she said, well, what would you like? And I said, I'd like you to make this right. And she said, what does that mean? And I said, well, to make this right, I need 2 gallons of paint. 1 old and 1 new. So that the old formula and the new formula, so we can touch it all up, and we can have the 3 walls be 1 color and 1 wall be just similar, but not exactly a good match. And we can make it work if you'll give us 2 gallons. She said, I think I can do it. And I'm so sorry. So that was the first time that a store employee actually apologized for the mistake of another one. And that, what I'm describing, is the high cost of ignorance. It costs us an extra day that we can never get back because this ignorant millennial at the Lowe's store doesn't know what she's doing. But the middle-aged gal did know how to do it. And she said, oh, she never should have done it that way. She never should have computer matched it. You had all the information here as to the base color and how much of each other color to add. It's all right here on the can. You have it right on this note that you wrote. It's all right here. And so that's what happened. But here's the rest of the story. The 3 cans that we used from 2008, I sealed, and I opened them up. and every one of them was rusted around the rim of the lid, on the inside of the can. This paint was stored inside. Now, one thing that I do, and I want to describe the procedure, because this is about tips and the way we do things. When we're done painting, we hammer the lid back on right away. Wipe all the paint from around the lid and the rim of the can. Put a cloth over it, tap, tap, tap with a rubber mallet, seal it, and then turn it upside down so that paint coats the upper part of the lid, the seal, and everything. And then we turn it right back in the normal position, face down. The idea is to actually coat any possible air passages so the paint won't harden in the can. And it didn't. It was fine. But the inside rim rusted inside the can, not outside, not where the outside air contacts it, inside the can. All three cans were rusted. And that's 2008 paint, and we just used it. Now, you would think that, well, it's old, right? I've never seen this before. So in the studio last year, I painted what's called picture rail. You've heard of chair rail. Chair rail is, it protects the wall from chairs scuffing the wall. It's molding. It goes horizontally about 3 feet up from the floor. Picture rail is about a foot down from the ceiling. And you hang pictures from it on cables or ribbons or whatever you choose. It's the way it's done in Europe. So I painted the picture rail with Glidden satin finish white paint. That's the trim color in the studio, white. I opened the can. I used it last year. Same thing. This can, which only had maybe 1/10 of the volume used to paint the picture rail from a gallon can, it's rusted the same way as the Valspar. David, when we come back, I'd love to hear your comments. What do you think's going on? Do you think it's the ammonia in the paint? Because now paint smells like ammonia. It's asphyxiating when you paint. Even with the windows and doors open, it's asphyxiating. Can you imagine that? I've never seen that before. This is brand new. This is a new phenomenon. We'll be right back. David in Illinois is with us. He's a USA Prepares instructor. David, I was talking about paint cans rusting from the inside. I've never seen that before. Have you experienced anything like that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Could it possibly be it breaking down in time, or is it in this little V seal is that what's rusted, or was the rust actually inside the paint can itself, the storage area? Inside
the paint can. So if you were to take the lid off, I'm talking about a metal can. Actually, they have hybrid cans now, the plastic bottoms, and around the rim you'd hammer the metal round lid onto. So they make, I guess that's so that they don't rust through the bottom. But they are now rusting, the hybrid cans are rusting where the steel inside, the plated steel, on the inside, underneath the lid, inside the can is rusting to the point where I would say 3/4 of the inside rim has disintegrated to rust, and now it mixes with the paint. So when you go to use this paint, you now have chunks of rust, which used to be the can. I mean, I'm not saying particles of rust. I'm talking about chunks of rust inside the can, what used to be the rim. And even the can that was 2008 cans, all three of those, rusted on the inside. But on the outside, they look perfect. You pick them up, they don't spill. It's when you take off the lid that you find out that the lid turns to rust chunks and falls right into the paint. Now you have to figure out how to get that out if you want to reuse the paint. Well, the paint that I used last year, which was Glidden paint, same thing. So it's Valspar and Glidden. One was a flat white wall paint. Flat off-white wall paint. And the other was a satin finish trim paint. Both rusted. Both smell like ammonia when you open the can. When you open the can new, it smells like ammonia. I think the paint is so corrosive that it eats the metal parts, especially the fumes on top of the paint. So if you have half a gallon left, the airspace has ammonia fumes in the top, above the paint in the can, and I think it corrodes the can. And if you have 90% paint and 10% air volume in the can, the ammonia volatilizes in the can and eats the metal parts. And that's what's going on. So now I'm thinking I'm going to get a chance to go. I've had it. I've absolutely had it with all kinds of weird things. They've changed the formula of paint. So I'm going to go to the Chinese factory outlet today, and I'm going to say this can has 90% of its paint left, but I can't use it because the inside of the lid or the rim disintegrated to rust, and it mixed with the paint. And I'd like it replaced so I can paint another room. Now, shouldn't I be able to save the paint from one year to the next? Absolutely. Because I know for a fact that we used to be able to store paint with the old formulas for decades if you didn't let it freeze. And it worked fine. Not anymore. Not anymore. New and improved. And I just can't wait to hear what they're going to tell me at the Chinese factory outlet when they say, "Well, Mr. Finelli, this is a year old. What do you expect?" I can't wait to hear that. I might even raise my voice a little bit. I can't stand this.
Now,
it's a 100-mile round trip for me to go bring this to Springfield, Missouri. And so what I did was I looked up metal paint cans. How much does a 1-gallon metal paint can cost? Well, if you buy a case of 12 of them, they're only $4.65 each. You can, if you buy paint at Walmart, you can get a can and the paint for like $15. But an empty can is $4.65 if you buy a case of them. This is nuts. Any comments about where we're going? How about wood prices? Have you bought wood lately, David?
No. Now, one of the engineers, which you would really like this guy. I mean, he lives the way you do, but that was way back. And he was buying, he would always tell me, buy wood anytime you can. And whenever we were at the farm sales, $18, $15 for a pickup load of wood, he said, you can never have enough. Never. I mean, I never seen somebody with so much wood on his property for his wood stoves. I mean, always.
In England, a few years ago, there was a propane shortage, and people were having a tough time getting fuel to heat their homes. And they're really not insulated all that well in Europe. I mean, they've got these stone buildings that a couple feet thick, and they're great heat sinks. And it's really hard to heat these old buildings. I'm talking about 300, 400-year-old buildings. And there was such a shortage of fuel that people were burning furniture and books for the BTU content. Literally, they found it was cheaper to buy books because nobody reads anymore and just throw them in the fire. Can you believe that?
Now, didn't they do that when several years back the whole grid went down and there was people out of power all the way up in Canada? They were burning furniture and everything they possibly could find.
Yeah, and they were doing that in Superstorm Sandy. One of our instructors, his name is Linus Ertley, and he is a freelance or contractor type insurance appraiser or insurance adjuster, I should say adjuster. And so he was hired to go, he gets hired to go to these major storm damage areas. And he said he couldn't believe it. People were burning their furniture to survive, literally burning their furniture. Now, there's not much that's more expensive made out of wood in a house than furniture. And that's what people were burning because they figured that was, the only way they could survive. Now, at our farm here, our son, we've got a gooseneck trailer. It's 26 feet long. It's 2 axles. I think it's rated for, maybe 15,000 pounds, 18,000 pounds, something like that. And he bought a whole bunch of bundles of wood that nobody wants. And he'd haul them home. He's got, Each bundle's between 1,000 and 2,000 pounds. Takes a front end loader to get them off, and our backyard looks like it's decorated with piles of wood, and that's because we're expecting an awful winter. However, the weather report is now saying, or the meteorologist is saying, it's going to be just a normal winter. Well, we don't believe them at all, because they can't get tomorrow's weather right. They can't even get today's weather right. So we don't trust them.
I went to go outside to do work yesterday, and they said it wasn't raining.
My dad had an expression, and he used to say, let's see, I believe that as far as I can throw a piano. It's awful. I mean, when I look back at the 1950s, life was so much better. It really was. People trusted each other. People didn't lock their houses. Now you need to have locks on your wheels on your cars because people will steal your cars, your wheels. They'll steal your stereo. Somebody broke into my truck. I let my son borrow it. He went to the big city, and I had a small inverter, just like a 400-watt little tiny inverter, fit in the palm of your hand. And it was on the floor of my truck, and somebody saw it, and they thought, you know what, that's worth breaking a window for. Broke my window to steal that. I was livid. I wish I saw that guy. I really do. So do you leave your doors open so they don't break the windows and steal your stuff?
Well, some people were leaving notes in their windows in the city saying, "No radio, please just walk by." And they broke in them anyways and replied on their note, just checking. So it doesn't matter.
Our family had a cabin on top of a mountain in West Virginia back in the 90s. And this place was really hard to get to. And so we were working on the cabin on the weekends. And this was going to be where we retired before we thought about Missouri. And so we're working on it, and somebody broke the window, climbed in the cabin, had their way with our cabin. So I took a .45 cartridge, and I tied it to a piece of string, and I put it on the back door window, and I put a note on it, and it was a spent case, .45 ACP, and the note said, "The next one's for you." and do you know, the place wasn't bothered again? True story. Well, we talked about paint. Let me share something else. Interesting thing. I've been experimenting with light bulbs for many years. And I was wondering, if you screw a light bulb in with you have the bulb in your hand and you screw it down into, like, let's say a table lamp, where the base is down and the glass is up. And we'll just talk about incandescent light bulbs, the old ones, before Hillary had her way with the light bulb industry. So you screw it in, and the heat would rise from the filament going upward. And I wondered, what would happen if you turned the bulb sideways? Would it last longer or not? And what if it was upside down? If you screwed it in, like in a fixture with the bulb, the glass part down and the base up. And then I thought, what about these compact fluorescent bulbs? Because they have electronics in them. They have the equivalent of a ballast in the base of the compact fluorescent light bulb. And heat rises. So the base would get really hot of this light bulb where the electronics is if you put it in a can light upside down. And I found out that these, you go to Costco or Sam's Club and they'd say compact fluorescent bulbs, you can get them for $6 a piece, maybe $10 initially, and 7-year life expectancy. And I would take a pencil and write on the base of, the a part of the electronics area, that plastic, high temperature type base, what the date was when I installed it. I find these darn things wouldn't last 7 years. It'd last maybe 1 year in an upside down position in a can light. And then I looked at other locations. So we have some that are horizontal, some that the base is down, some the base is up in the ceiling lights, the can lights. And here's the answer. So they last the longest if they're sideways. And this is any light, because heat rises. And the heat rises off the light if they're sideways, the best. Second best is the base down, and the worst is when they're upside down. So how long do they last sideways? Well, I think about 15 years at least, because they're still going. We'll be right back. David's with us in Illinois. David, we're talking about banking and credit cards and fees and so forth. And I wanted to share with our class a term that I learned years ago. This is a banking term, and you've all heard it. I'm pretty sure it's called deadbeats. So, a person can be referred to as a deadbeat. But deadbeat in banking vernacular is not what you think. It's what David was talking about. A deadbeat to a banker is someone in credit card banking. A deadbeat is someone who has a credit card account, one of those that does not have an annual fee. That's what we have, one that does not have an annual. By the way, I'm a deadbeat. Mrs. Finelli is a deadbeat. Everyone in our family is a deadbeat, and I'm pretty darn sure David is too. And let me tell you why we're deadbeats. Because a deadbeat to a banker is someone who has a credit card with no annual fee, someone who pays it off every month, and someone who doesn't get charged interest and fees and penalties. That's a deadbeat to a banker. Someone they can't skim money from through their policies and procedures and fee schedules. So I'm a deadbeat. David, are you a deadbeat?
Yeah, I don't have any credit cards anymore. I'm sorry. They took them away because I didn't have a balance, so they took them away.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Well, they do not want, well, yeah, class, you may think that David's kidding. He did not have a balance, so they took them away. Now, you might think he's kidding. It happened to me, too. I had a credit card that was, I don't know the issuer of which bank used it, but it was a General Motors credit card. And the more you used it, the more points you would get. The more points you would get, you could use those points to buy a brand new General Motors vehicle, something I would never do. So I didn't use the card. So credit limit, the credit limit might have been $10,000. And by the time they were done with me, because I didn't use it very often, my credit limit was $300. And I called him up and I said, what am I supposed to do with this credit card? I can't use a credit card with a $300 limit. I'm going to be bumping up against it, and you're going to be charging me over limit fees all the time. And this is when gasoline was $4, or diesel was $4 or $4.79 a gallon. So I'd get 2 tanks of diesel, and I'd be against over the limit. So I didn't use the card. So what did they do? They took it away from us, just as David said. No kidding, David. What you said is, people might think, well, you abused the card, and that's why they took it away from you. They took it away from you because you didn't use it.
Yeah, they told me exactly I didn't use it. I said I didn't qualify for it because I'm not using it. And I'm like, you're kidding me. Fine, I don't care. It's not no big deal to me. Just now, I met some recent individuals asking them about their credit, and what do they do about credit cards. And a lot of these people say, I don't care. I owe over $100,000 on my car. I'm like, how in the world can you? I mean, that is unbelievable.
When I was growing up, you could buy 3 really nice houses for that. Maybe 4, maybe 5.
I'm like, my God, I'd go crazy. I'd psychologically, they'd probably have to put me in a hospital. I'd worry about that. So Over $100,000. Man.
Yeah.
And that's common.
Okay, so are we talking about the GDP?
Huh?
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
David, do you find that it's amazing how little people know about so much?
I'm surprised. And I used to try to help and tell people in the store do this or that, but I'm tired of getting chewed out because they either didn't know or I didn't push the issue and help them enough. I'm like, fine, do whatever.
All right, let's talk about something. Go ahead.
Some of them people will actually have nerve to call back and track me down and go and get mad at me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about something really simple. I'm hanging a ceiling fan this afternoon. I want to get the scaffolding out of the bedroom, and so I bought a ceiling fan. It's made by Hunter. It's called Silent Breeze. I had to buy a used one because that's really a nice fan. It looks nice. It's got great bearings, and it really is quiet. So I bought 3 of them when we first built our house. Lowe's couldn't wait to get rid of them. They're $48 a piece, so I bought 3 of them. I needed 4 of them. So I found 2 on the internet, just like it, used in really great condition. So I bought 2 of them. I had to clean them up, and I'm going to hang them. The reason I'm telling you this is we're not making products as well as we used to, so I had to buy used ones. Well, when you hang a ceiling fan, typically you just screw it into the light fixture. You can't do that. That's why they fall down, because the light fixture boxes were never designed to hold the weight of a ceiling fan. And that's why people get hurt when the ceiling fans break from their mount in the ceiling. You need
I had to replace
box.
Mine with steel.
Right. You need to have a steel box. It needs to be secured into like a 2x6 in the ceiling, attached and glued and screwed to the joist. That's what you need to do. Hey, David, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Class, we'll see you tomorrow.